any questions you may have.
Sir, the Progressive Conservative Party has had some tough times over the past few years. John Tory with his faith-based funding, and Tim Hudak with his right to work legislation, a dead turnoff of voters, it would seem. You have your work cut out for you. What do you have offered for? What do you have to offer for Ontario and for the North, sir?
Well, we're feeling encouraged. Obviously there was disappointment before, but the party is on the right track. We a year ago had 10,000 party members. We have 80,000 today. Frankly, we have more members now in Moosonee than we had votes in Moosonee in the last provincial election. It's great to have an alumni of the Sioux Greyhounds and Wayne Gretzky being one of the latest additions to our party. We have a city council like Ross Romano who has been leading the charge, where we've seen the membership in this riding increase tenfold. So I'm optimistic for the party in Northern Ontario. We are going to be a party that is pragmatic, that is sincere, that is authentic, and speaks to the fact that we need to make Ontario the easiest place to create jobs. And right now we've lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs, and whether it is gridlock, whether it's missing transportation corridors, whether it's the highest energy prices in North America, whether it is an excessive red tape, or the new proposed cap and trade tax, the payroll tax, Ontario is becoming less competitive, and I think that's as significant in Northern Ontario as it is everywhere else in Ontario. Because when I went to the Ring of Fire with Vic Fideli, we heard how an EA was going to take 45 days and ended up taking 3 years. We heard about the energy prices crippling the sector. When I was in Timmins with Norm Miller, we heard the same concerns. We've had some presentations today in caucus from notables in Northern Ontario, speaking about the concerns that we're hearing all around Ontario. And that's why it's so important that we have a voice at Queen's Park that talks about making Ontario great again, about making Ontario the leader in economic development, not the province that loses 300,000 jobs.
You'll be speaking to officials like Tanaris later on, I believe?
Yeah, that's one of the spots on our tour, and that's an example of an area where we've unfortunately saw job losses. We want to learn how to make every business in Ontario more competitive, because the fact that there's been job losses in the Sioux, when I visited different towns and cities in Ontario, there tends to be common concerns, and those common concerns relate to red tape, transportation corridors, having energy prices that are simply not competitive, and the common concerns we're hearing around the ORPP and this new cap and trade tax.
Sault Ste. Marie traditionally hasn't been a conservative voting town. How do you plan on trying to change that?
I think the fact we're here highlights our interest in winning the seat in 2018. I know they told Brian Hayes that he wasn't expected to win in 2011, and this is now a seat that Prime Minister Harper won. We intend to win this seat in the next provincial election. We intend to make breakthroughs in Northern Ontario, and we're really excited about some of the new people involved in the party.
Mr. Brown, staying with the topic of energy, one of your colleagues, Christine Elliott, talked about a review of energy policies. How important is that to the party, and what will it mean specifically for Northern Ontario? Because it is a very important issue here with the high costs that people are paying.
Well, I think the energy policies of this Liberal government have been the most damaging of their policies. When I was asked after the leadership, what is the biggest issue that we're facing at Queen's Park, and I responded, holding the Liberals accountable on their reckless energy policies. Whether it is the gas plant scandal, $1 billion, the smart meters, $2 billion, the missed billings that we continue to hear more and more about, or now the fire sale of Hydro One, where we're not going to get a proper valuation and have no oversight. There is a reason Ontario is paying the highest energy prices in North America. There is a reason that we continue to lose manufacturing jobs, and I view energy prices at being at the forefront of that. I know our energy critic John Yakubuski put out a statement today about our ongoing concerns, and this is going to be an issue that we make a priority at Queen's Park, because you can't recruit jobs to Ontario. You can't retain jobs in Ontario unless you have competitive energy prices.
This is particularly an effect on business because of their high costs that they're paying right
now. Well, I think it's more than just business. It certainly is a huge cost on business. But there are a lot of residents in Ontario living in energy poverty. Because under the Liberal watch, we've seen energy prices go up $1,000 for the average family, and that is making it's a pressure that too many families struggle with, and that's why it's so important we get our energy policy right in Ontario, because it's a huge weight on business and it's a huge weight on Ontario families.
The Northern Ontario economy hasn't fared well lately in the recent years. What ideas or proposals do you have that'll turn that around for Northerners?
Well, one of the things that I believe is important is to be here, to be present, to listen to the best ideas. We had presentations from 4 different presentations already in our caucus meeting, and we're hearing different ideas. Obviously, it's premature to make any announcements on policy because we're not going to release our policy platform 2 years and 10 months in advance of a provincial election. But the fact that we are aggressively traveling in Northern Ontario, looking for suggestions at how to make Northern Ontario more prosperous, I think speaks to our commitment to Northern Ontario. But I'd say on the broad strokes, on the big themes, missing transportation corridors is a challenge for business. Energy prices are a challenge for business. The regulatory burden, the red tape is a challenge for business. It's one thing to hear about the red tape in the auto sector in Windsor, but we're hearing about it just as much here. When the terms of reference on an EA is supposed to take 45 days and it takes 3 years, that's unacceptable. And no wonder you hear reports like the Fraser report that says we've gone from number 1 in mining to 23rd. We have to get the fundamentals right, and that's what we're committed to doing.
So the by-election is scheduled for when?
That's actually a great question. The
by-election.
Yeah. So the Garfield Dunlop, who's here with us today, announced his resignation as of August 1st. The Premier had made a promise that she would call a by-election immediately. I'm disappointed that she's playing political games. It's one thing to take away oversight from the Ombudsman on the sale of Hydro One. It's another thing to want to evade questions in question period. What does the Premier have to hide? I want to be in the legislature to ask the Premier about energy prices, to ask the Premier about the growth of red tape, 354,000 regulations. I want to be in the legislature to ask the Premier why there seems to be a complete disinterest in Northern Ontario by this government. And I don't understand why she continues to play political games and break her promise to call a by-election right away.
No date set yet.
The Premier has up until 6 months to call it. She had previously made a commitment on May 11th to call it immediately, and we're hoping that she changes her mind and honors her original commitment.
When you became leader of the party, you were ultimately an outsider. You were a federal MP. You jumped ship to the provincial legislature. How hard was it to earn the trust of your members?
Well, we have an incredible caucus, and one thing that I've spent time doing over the last few months is trying to visit as many ridings as possible and get to know the caucus members a little bit better. And one thing I have learned is that the depth and the strength and the talent we have in our caucus is incredible. We have a united progressive conservative family, and the group we have here today I am really excited to work with, and I think you're going to see the strength of the party in the months and the years ahead.
Is that why you're doing caucus meetings like this, outside of the Toronto area, to get to know your members better and for them to get to know you better?
Well, we're having the caucus retreat here because Northern Ontario is important for me. I said during the leadership campaign I want the party to be more present in Northern Ontario. Having our first caucus meeting in Sault Ste. Marie is building upon our ongoing efforts in Northern Ontario. Immediately after after winning the leadership, one of my very first trips was to go to the Ring of Fire with Vic Fideli. Immediately after that, I went with Norm Millard to Timmins. We intend to be active in Northern Ontario, and the caucus retreat, the location of the retreat, is about Northern Ontario.
Thank you, guys.